find out who murdered Bozo, there's a few members of our rodeo family who deserves to be officially cleared first. So, detectives, before anyone gets any wild ideas, no, the kids are not guilty. We have more than enough suspicious adults in this mystery, so leave the children alone. But I would like to introduce our sweet rodeo princess, Miss Sunny Sky. She's kind-hearted, horse crazy, and very, very good at being quiet when adults are talking nearby. So Sunny absolutely did not kill Bozo. Next we have Colt Ryder, our little cowboy, who came to the horses and rodeo fun and somehow ended up surrounded by adults with more secrets than common sense. And then we have Jester Jones at 16. He can drive, he can notice when adults are acting strange, and somehow he is still the least suspicious. And no, there are no dead clowns in Jester's future. He was not trying to get revenge or anything. He did his job. And finally, we have our Mr. Buck Stallion. Buck came to the rodeo weekend and landed right in the middle of enough family secrets to fill a soap opera. He may have found things, heard things, and made a few adults nervous, but Bo's murder is one family problem Buck did not create. Buck Stallion is also innocent. Time to find out how good your instincts really were. And before I do that, I just wanted to begin with Saving Grace. Saving is sweet. Seriously, detectives, if you voted for her, you should be ashamed of yourself. She cared about Buck and is a very busy girl. In fact, as you can see, she's ready to go to her next rodeo to perform. So, Miss Saving Grace is innocent and she's going to tell us goodbye. And now we have Officer Drew One Gun. Every great investigation needs a good officer, preferably one who does not slip at the crime scene and add a few extra blood smears for the detectives to puzzle over, but nobody's perfect. Officer One Gun helped keep the investigation moving, dealt with our suspects, and survived a weekend of rodeo people explaining why their suspicious behavior was completely normal. Let's hear it for Officer Drew One Gun. And now, detectives, it's time for the person who has been sorting through your clues, theories, and accusations, and probably a few guesses that made absolutely no sense at all, like if you voted for Save It. Please welcome Chief Detective.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate that. All right, let's start off with Mary Gold. Well, detectives, we've reached the moment where we begin separating suspicion from murderer. And the next name on my list is Mary Gold. Mary came to rodeo weekend with her earthly charm, her rodeo queen hopes, and a growing suspicion that Bozo was playing favorites. She watched marvelous command attention, watched barbed wire receive Bo's encouragement, and watched Bo carry that mysterious folder around like a man who had personally invented everyone else's anxiety. Friday night, Mary's curiosity finally got the better of her. When Bo left TKO on his trusty horse Outlaw around 10:30 p.m., Mary followed him outside and confronted him. She wanted to know what he was hiding and whether he had already decided who deserved the crown. Bo rode away before she got the answer she wanted. When he later returned, still carrying that folder, Mary became even more convinced that whatever was inside could change the weekend. Mary also had another little complication, pierced ear. She had feelings for him. Yes, wait. Whether she particularly enjoyed admitting it or not, while Pierce was beginning to have feelings for Saving Grace. Mary warned Saving that Pierce was bad news and sided with Bo when he tried to keep the two apart. Was Mary protecting Saving? Was she jealous? Was she hoping Pierce might eventually notice the woman standing conveniently nearby? Mary would probably prefer we call it concern and move along. So Mary had jealousy, curiosity, a confrontation with Bo, and an unhealthy interest in one manila folder. Not exactly innocent looking, but compared with what you are about to hear this afternoon, detectives, consider Mary Gold your warm-up. She wanted Bo's answers. She wanted a fair shot at the crown, and she may have even wanted Pierce's ear. But she did not want Bo so dead. Suspicious? A little. Jealous? Well, let's save and decide. Murderer? No. Mary Gold is innocent, and with Mary Gold cleared, detectives, things are about to get considerably messier. Okay. Barbed wire, or as I like to pronounce it, wow, wow. And now, ladies and gentlemen, meet barbed wire. Barrel racer, rhinestone storm cloud, and the reason family loyalty should probably come with a warning label. Barb grew up on dust, applause, tight turns, and tighter grudges. She's Dusty Carell's daughter, Bozo's almost niece, and a rodeo queen hopeful with a smile bright enough to blind a judge and a disappointment threshold somewhere below sea level. Bo had encouraged her writing, boosted her confidence, and nudged her towards the crown. So when he refused to promise her his vote, Barb took it calmly, but by which I mean she absolutely did not. There was the folder. In a murder mystery, a mysterious folder is never full of coupons. Barb was sure it held the rodeo queen truth, the scholarship secret, or at least something worth ruining everyone's night over. At about 2:45 a.m., while Dusty was closing TKO, Barb slipped outside and confronted Bo. Quietly? Probably not. Calmly? Absolutely not. She demanded answers. Bo refused. Barb left angry, hurt, embarrassed, and carrying the kind of guilt that shows up later, looking exactly like motive. Then she went back inside and said nothing to Dusty and went home. A few hours later, when Dusty called to say Bo had been found outside TKO, Barb's stomach had every reason to drop through the floorboards. So yes, Barb looked guilty. Motive in rhinestones, opportunity in the moonlight, and one secret argument she forgot to mention. But barbed wire did not kill Uncle Bo. Her crime was believing loyalty came with a crown, a scholarship, and maybe one tiny little voice. Suspicious? Absolutely. Dramatic? Professionally. Murderer? Not even close. Okay, moving on. And thank you for that musical intro.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a busy woman. I got a ranch. I got to take calls sometimes.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Dusty Carell. Dusty is the kind of woman who could run a saloon before sunrise, keep a room full of cowboys in line, and hear 3 different secrets before the coffee is finished brewing. TKO is her place. Bozo was her best friend, and for years Dusty believed there were very few things Bo could keep from her. That belief turned out to be almost adorable. Bo had trusted Dusty with plenty, but not everything. He never simply told her the truth about Buck Stallion. Dusty had suspicions about Bo, Mary and Richmond, and Buck, but Bo let her keep wondering. He also refused to promise his rodeo queen vote to Barbed Wire, the daughter who had grown up calling him Uncle Bo. To Dusty, that hurt twice. Bo was family, and family was apparently handing out secrets on a need-to-know basis. Then there was Claire Skye, and the old tragedy involving Claude. Dusty had spent years carrying other people's painful history while Bo wandered through rodeo weekend with his manila folder, stirring up old wounds, threatening new revelations, and behaving like a man who had completely forgotten that secrets have weight. Dusty knew enough to understand that whatever Bo planned to reveal could hurt people she loved. She just did not know exactly how much he had hidden her from, too. Friday night did Dusty no favors. She and Barb were still inside TKO, closing around 2 a.m. Bo was nearby. People had been arguing with him all night. Around 3 a.m., Dusty and Barb finally went home. Dusty says she stayed there until about 5:20, then returned alone to open for breakfast. Barb can support parts of that story, but nobody watched Dusty every minute. And if you're trying to look innocent in a murder mystery, nobody can account for me for a while. Nobody can account for me for a while is not usually the strongest opening statement. Dusty came back through TKO's rear door around 5:25 a.m. She turned on the lights, checked the money, started the coffee, and went about the routine she had done countless times before. She did not approach the front entrance until 5:58 a.m., when she looked at her watch and decided it was time to unlock the door. That is when she found Bo outside. The man who had been her best friend for decades, the man who had trusted her with secrets, withheld others, hurt her daughter, and left Dusty wondering whether she had ever really known the whole truth at all. So yes, Dusty looked suspicious. Bo died outside her business. She knew the property better than anyone. Her overnight alibi had gaps. She had reasons to feel betrayed, angry, protective, and deeply wounded, and she was carrying enough secrets to fill a second bar. But did Dusty Carell murder Bozo? Her betrayal was real. Her anger was real. Her hurt over Barb was real. And learning that Bo had kept something as life-changing as Buck from her cut deeper than she wanted anyone to see. But Dusty's first call after finding Bo was to the police. She had spent years protecting the people around him, not plotting to silence him. Suspicious? Absolutely. Betrayed? Completely. A woman who may never forgive Bo for making her the keeper of everyone else's secrets while keeping the biggest one from her. Without question. Murderer? No. Ace High. Now I bring you a man known as Ace High. Ace High is the sort of man who could shuffle a deck, wink at your grandmother, and somehow leave town owning both her pie recipe and her good silver. He arrived at blood in the dust with polished boots, a gambler's grin, and a dream big enough to need 7 racehorses and someone else's money to pay for it. Ace called it a business opportunity. Everyone else might call it a financial rodeo with no saddle and a suspicious amount of manure. Still, he smelled like a saint and talked like a man who had already won. Now, the trouble with Bozo, Bo had already once made Ace look like a crooked little card trick by accusing him of meddling with rodeo betting, and Ace had carried that embarrassment around like a burr in his boot. Now, Bo was sniffing around Clydesdale's horse stealing, carrying a folder, asking questions, and generally behaving like a rodeo clown with the investigative instincts of a bloodhound. To Ace, Bo was not funny. Bo was a painted-faced threat standing between him and 7 glorious racehorses that may have been champions, bargains, or 4-legged lawsuits that waiting to happen. At TKO, Ace stayed glued to Marvelous while she drank too much, worried too loudly, and spiraled over Bo's possible ruining her rodeo queen chances. Ace looked caring, protective even, kind of friend who makes sure you get home safely, and perhaps casually suggests somewhere between tears and tequila that investing in a horse deal would be the smartest decision of your life. Then, after leaving Mara around 2 in the morning, Ace did not tuck himself into bed like a man with nothing to hide. No. Ace went driving through the dark, looking for Bozo, which is a perfectly normal thing to do after midnight if you are either very concerned, very guilty, or very bad at bedtime. So yes, Ace High looked guilty enough to make a jury sit up straighter. He had motive, opportunity, a missing stretch of time, and a personal relationship with the truth that could best be described as seasonal. He was awake when he should have been asleep, searching for the victim before anyone knew there was a victim, and hiding the fact that he had been fishing for money from an intoxicated woman. But Ace did not kill Bozo. His hands were dirty with greed, not blood. Ace's high crime was trying to turn Marvelous into an ATM machine with eyelashes, not turning a rodeo clown into a corpse. Sinister? Absolutely. Suspicious? Painfully. Murderer? Not this time. And I think that not this time. Okay. Now, we turn our attention to Navarre in Focus, a reporter, photographer, professional observer, and a woman who considers hearing news secondhand a personal insult. Navarre, always ready with her camera and her reporter instincts fully charged. She watched people, took photographs, kept notes, paid attention to the little details. Everyone else would it seemed, go unnoticed. Unfortunately for Navarre, another mysterious writer kept sticking her nose into the weekend. Tell a story. Nobody seemed to know exactly who Tella was, yet somehow Tella kept producing gossip and information before Navarre could get there. For a reporter, this was not merely irritating. This was war with punctuation. Friday night, while other people were drinking, arguing, flirting, and making spectacular poor decisions, Navarre was editing photographs and reviewing her notes. That sounds wonderfully responsible until you remember that a photographer can notice things nobody else sees. And Navarre had been collecting images of a weekend filled with secrets. Then, Bozo turned up dead, and Navarre faced the ultimate humiliation. She did not get the story first. Instead of quietly accepting defeat like a mature professional, Navarre immediately turned her attention toward Tell a Story. As Navarre so helpfully suggested, Tella seems to have her nose in everything these days. I would not believe anything she said. She probably did it. Nothing says objective journalism quite like accusing your competition of homicide before breakfast. So yes, Navarre had photographs, notes, late night activity, and intense curiosity about everyone else's business, and enough resentment towards Tell a Story to make the morning newspaper practically smoke. She may have known more than she intentionally admitted. She certainly wanted to know more than everyone else. But Navarre in Focus did not kill Bozo. Her greatest offense was being stooped by the biggest story of rodeo weekend and reacting with all the grace of a reporter watching somebody else get the headline. Nosy? Professionally. Jealous? Absolutely. Murderer? No. Navarre wanted the story of Bozo's murder. She did not create it. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you to Rowdy Hayes. Rowdy once wore the rodeo queen crown until Bozo exposed that she had performed while intoxicated. She lost the crown and for years blamed Bo for humiliating her. But now sober, Rowdy could admit the truth was more complicated. Bo embarrassed her publicly, but what he exposed was real. She rebuilt her life anyway. Unfortunately, Bo still had that remarkable talent for getting under her skin. Friday night, Rowdy stayed away from the bar crowd and attended a Zoom AA meeting around 11:30 p.m. She gave Bo a ride after he returned outlaw. During that ride, Bo questioned her past, her drinking, and whether she had really changed. Rowdy dropped him off alive, but his words stayed with her. By 2:50 a.m., she was still awake. And instead of doing literally anything that would look better in a homicide investigation, Rowdy climbed into her silver Ford F-150 and went looking for Bo. Around 3 a.m., she drove past TKO. Bo was nowhere in sight. She noticed a bag of trash near the door, made a short loop, never found him, and returned to the rodeo grounds around 3:20, 3:25. And nobody could account for every minute of that drive. Rowdy also knew Claire was struggling with the 10th anniversary of Claude's death and protected her privacy. Claire had used money from Claude's life insurance policy to contribute just as much as Rowdy did towards the Rodeo Queen scholarship. Rowdy wasn't covering for Claire because of Bo's murder. She was protecting an old friend and an old confidence. Still, detectives, look at what we had. Bo cost Rowdy her crown. He questioned her sobriety. She was alone with him earlier that night. Then, during the murder window, she went looking specifically for Bo. Drove past the place where his body would be found later, and had a stretch of time nobody could verify. If Rowdy had been trying to make herself look guilty, she couldn't have done much better. But did Rowdy Hayes murder Bozo? No. She went looking for Bo because his doubts still got under her skin, not because she intended to silence him. Rowdy's secret was that she had fallen backwards. It was how fiercely she was fighting to keep moving forward. Old grudge? Absolutely. Opportunity? Uncomfortably. Suspicious? Oh, yes. Murderer? No. Rowdy had already fought her way back from one wounded life. She did not end Bozo's. Rowdy Hayes is innocent.
Did you not
Claire?
know?
Claire Sky, grandmother, trusted keeper of the rodeo children, dependable adult, bar avoider, and apparently the woman who decided that the 10th anniversary of her husband's death was an excellent time to go wandering around Richland Center after 2 in the morning looking for the man who broke her heart decades ago. Claire came to rodeo weekend intending to watch the kids, stay away from the late night drinking crowd, and quietly survive the anniversary of Claudie Sky's tragic death. Claudie Sky's death. Okay, sensible, respectable, completely reasonable. And then there was Bozo. Long before anyone found Bo dead outside TKO, Bo had been the greatest love of Claire's life. Unfortunately for Claire, Bo eventually chose Marion Richmond instead. Claire moved on, married Claude, built a life, and buried that heartbreak so deeply everyone assumed it was gone. It was not gone. Apparently, heartbreak has an excellent memory. Sometime after 2 a.m., while the respectable people of Richland Center were doing sensible things, like sleeping, Claire decided she needed answers. Bo, Marianne, the past, and one particularly uncomfortable question involving Buck Stallion had been circling in her mind all night. So Claire went looking for Bo. She found him alive near TKO around 3:10 a.m. And this was not a friendly little reunion. Claire confronted him. Old wounds opened, voices were raised, tears were shed. Questions were asked. Bo, unfortunately, continued his lifelong tradition of answering difficult questions as though every honest sentence cost him $20. Claire became furious. At around 3:20 a.m., she walked away from Bo alive, which would have been the end of a very uncomfortable evening. Except, a few hours later, Bozo was dead. Now, Claire had a problem. She had secretly gone looking for the victim. She had argued with him. She had cried. She had stormed away. And when Rowdy Hayes saw Claire return to the rodeo grounds, visibly upset, Claire let Rowdy believe her emotions were connected to Claude's anniversary. It was not exactly a lie. It was simply a missing several extremely important chapters. Claire did not mention Bo. She did not mention the argument. She did not mention Buck. And she certainly did not announce, oh, by the way, I just had an emotional confrontation with the man who is about to become the center of a murder investigation. Understandably, so Claire looked guilty. Very guilty. She had old love, old jealousy, buried heartbreak, a secret nighttime trip, a private confrontation, and enough emotional baggage to require its own horse trailer. But did Claire Sky murder Bozo? Her crime was believing that after all these years, Bo might finally give her the answer she deserved. Instead, he gave her more questions. Seriously? Absolutely. Heartbroken? Without question. Capable of making spectacular bad decisions after 2 a.m.? Apparently. But a murderer? No. Claire Sky simply chose the worst possible night to dig up a past that should probably have stayed buried. Meet Chris Coe. Chris Coe is a chef from Graceland Ranch, Texas, and the kind of man who takes barbecue personally. Not, I prefer my sauce a little sweeter personally, more like, touch my recipe and we may need attorneys, witnesses, and possibly a fire extinguisher. Personally, that's how he took it. Chris came to Richland Center ready to cook for the rodeo crowd, defend his reputation, and prove that good barbecue requires patience, skill, and absolutely no rodeo clowns stealing your sauce. Because, according to Chris, That is exactly what Bozo had done. Chris believed Bo had stolen his barbecue sauce recipe and was passing it around like he had personally descended from Mount Hickory, carrying 2 stone tablets and a bottle of smoky mesquite. Bo laughed it off. Chris did not. Their rivalry followed them straight into TKO, where words were exchanged and Chris made it very clear that Bo had gotten under his skin. For a chef, Chris was getting dangerously close to serving revenge as the evening special. And Chris did not exactly improve appearances around town. At Okuch Books and Libations, Colt Ryder overheard Chris and Pierce steer in the cooking section. Pierce was looking for a recipe to make dinner for Saving Grace, while Chris was talking recipes too, except the conversation drifted towards what they could do to Bo's food to get back at him. They laughed. They tossed around ideas. The 2 grown men, it may have been dark humor. To a kid quietly listening from the gaming books, it sounded an awful lot like 2 suspects workshopping a menu. Then came Friday night. Chris stayed out at the rodeo grounds because he was cooking for the folks there, while Mary Richmond and Buck Stallion were staying at an Airbnb. That gave Chris a reason to be awake, access to cooking equipment, plenty of time without Marion watching him, and one very public grudge against a man who would be dead before breakfast. In other words, Chris had assembled a murder mystery equivalent of a fully stocked pantry. By Saturday morning, Bozo was dead. And Chris's stolen recipe feud suddenly did not sound nearly as cute. He had motive, seasoned with humiliation, threats marinated in anger, suspicious jokes about tampering with Bo's food, and an overnight location that did not exactly come with 24-hour supervision. If investigators wanted to cook up a case against somebody, Chris had handed them most of the ingredients. But did Chris go murder Bozo? Chris was furious about that sauce. He wanted his credit, his reputation, and probably the satisfaction of watching Bo admit that the best thing he ever put on a rib belonged to somebody else. But Chris's revenge was culinary, loud, and dramatic, not deadly. His sauce may have had a kick, and his temper may have had more. Suspicious? Extra spicy. Vindictive? Served hot. Capable of holding a grudge against the brisket dries out? Absolutely. Murderer? No. Chris Co. never wanted Bozo out of his recipe book, not out of this world. I know, we all wanted him to do it. All right. Now we have Clydesdale. Clydesdale is the kind of old horseman who can look at an animal from 50 feet away and tell you its age, temperament, bloodline, and exactly how much more it's worth once he gets done lying about the first 3. He came to Richland Center with 7 beautiful horses, impressive certificates, and pedigrees so fancy those animals particularly needed family crests. According to Clyde, Ace High was looking at the deal of a lifetime. In reality, the horses had come from Richland Area Rescue. They were good horses, honest horses. Unfortunately, honesty was not exactly contagious. Clyde had taken 7 perfectly respectable rescue horses and with some creative paperwork, transformed them into high-dollar racing royalty. Ace was prepared to pay $214,000 for the package. Clyde was preparing to smile all the way to the bank. And then Bozo started asking questions. Bo noticed problems in the registrations and pedigrees and began digging into where those horses had really come from. Suddenly, Clyde's retirement plan had a rodeo clown standing in front of it with a shovel. Bo and Clyde argued. Bo made it clear he was not going to ignore what he found, and Clyde had every reason to want him quiet. If Bo talked, the money disappeared, the deal collapsed, and 7 alleged descendants of champions became 7 very confused rescue horses, wondering why everybody was suddenly so interested in their grandparents. Then, during the very hours, sensible, innocent people were sleeping. Clyde was still awake, dealing with what he called business papers. business papers after midnight. When the man threatening to expose your six-figure fraud is about to turn up dead. Clyde could not have made that sound worse if he had tried. By Saturday morning, Mary in Richmond called Clyde with the news that Bozo was dead. And suddenly, the one man threatening Clyde's money and reputation could no longer tell anyone what he knew. Convenient did not cover it. Clyde had a motive. Money on the line, forged paperwork, an argument with Bo, and late night activity he would probably have preferred nobody examined too closely. If he looked any guiltier, Chief Detective could have skipped the interview and put handcuffs on the horse trailer. But did Clyde Estill murder Bozo? Clyde was certainly guilty of turning horse pedigrees into fiction, rescue horses into imaginary royalty, and ace high into a man prepared to spend $214,000 on an extremely expensive fairy tale. His paperwork was crooked, his business deals sunk, and his timing was downright awful. But Clyde's fraud was about making money, not making Bo disappear. He doctored the bloodlines, not Bozo's blood. Suspicious? Absolutely. Crooked? Like an old fence post. Murderer? No. All right. Still good?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay. All right. All right, detectives, I'll admit it. With Mary in Richmond, when a woman has buried 3 husbands in 10 years and is already openly shopping for a husband, number 4, law enforcement tends to keep her name somewhere near the top of the list.
I don't know why you stand behind me like that.
And Mary in Richmond certainly did not make our job any easier. She had history with Bozo, a lot of history. Their relationship went back decades, and Bo knew secrets about Mary Ann that she would have preferred stayed buried. And there was Buck Stallion. Mary Ann had spent years protecting the truth that Bozo was Buck's biological father. Bo and Mary Ann had recently been talking again, and whatever feelings existed between them had never completely disappeared.
It's all right, Buck. It's all right. We'll talk after this. Don't worry about it.
So yes, Mary Ann had secrets, and she proudly tells them to everybody.
I do.
She had opportunity, and apparently she has remarkably terrible luck with husbands. Because underneath all of Mary Ann's drama, money, marriages, and secrets was one line she would never cross. She would never intentionally take her child's father away from him.
I told you all. Every single one of you coming up to me.
Buck adored Bo. Buck was even named after Buck Around Rodeo, where Mary Ann and Bo met. Mary Ann knew that someday Buck deserved the truth about who his father really was. Killing Bo would not protect Buck, but it would rob him forever of the chance to know his own father. Mary Ann may have lied, she may have manipulated, she may have kept secrets that lasted far too long. Fortunately for Mary Ann, marrying rich is not a crime. Considering her matrimonial track record, however, I strongly recommend that any man considering becoming Mr. Richman number 4, update his will and invest in
I am
non-slip
looking.
shoes.
Any y'all interested? I don't know. So, I need number 4 over here, and I don't think Mr. Clydesdale is going to cut it on here. So, hit me up over here. Huh? I don't want a crooked one.
So, anyway, looking after the evidence, we got a ways to go, so I'm sorry.
I know, I take
So after looking at all the evidence, we can say with confidence that Mary Ann Richmond's biggest crime is being a gold digger. But Mary Ann Richmond is not Bozo's killer. So Mary Ann, you're free to go, but not to hit anybody with your cane.
Darn it.
Although
Better watch your back, cheap detective.
So for the sake of every eligible bachelor in Richland County, run! Run! Mary Ann Richmond did not kill Bozo.
Don't listen to this man.
Okay. Now we have Pierce Deere. Then Pierce detectives had some explaining to do. From the moment Pierce showed up on Saturday morning with a fresh black eye, he had a story ready. He felt that was a lie. But unfortunately for Pierce, lying about how you got a black eye is not a crime. Late Friday night, right here in Richland Center, Pierce and Bo finally confronted each other. Bo did not approve of Pierce getting close to saving grace, and Pierce was tired of Bo interfering. The argument got heated, and Bo took the first swing. That fresh black eye Pierce was sporting, Bozo hated him. Pierce could have swung back. He was younger, angry, and certainly capable of doing some damage. But Pierce was not going to beat up an old man just because the old man took a swing at him. And maybe there was another reason Pierce chose to walk away. Saving grace. Pierce knew Savin cared about Bo, even when Bo was driving her crazy. And somewhere along the way, Pierce had started caring quite a bit about Savin too. Starting a full-blown brawl with Bo was not exactly going to win him any points with her. So Pierce swallowed his pride, took the black eye, and walked away, and then lied about it. Not because he had killed Bo, because admiring an older rodeo clown punched you in the face and you did not hit him back is not the exact story a man like Pierce Deere rushes to tell everybody. Pierce had anger. He had a confrontation with Bo, and for a while he had one very suspicious black eye. But that black eye proved Pierce and Bo fought late Friday night. It did not prove Pierce murdered him. Pierce may be guilty of lying. He may be guilty of pride. He may be guilty of falling a whole lot harder for saving grace than he planned. But Bozo's murderer? No. Pierce Deere is innocent. Pierce, you're free to go. And next time anybody asks you about the black eye, just tell them Bo had a good red hook. Okay. Marvelous. We've been keeping Bozo long enough. Detectives, all weekend you follow grudges, lies, secrets, relationships, crooked horse deals, jealous contestants, barbecue wars, and enough bad blood to fill the TKO twice over. But in the end, Bozo was not murdered over horses. He was not murdered over barbecue sauce. And despite what the crime scene looked like, he was not beaten to death. Bozo died because one woman could not stand the thought of losing something she believed already belonged to her. The buck-around rodeo queen crown.
It's mine.
That woman was marvelous. Mar did not simply want that crown. In her mind, she had already earned it. The problem was Bo. Bo had tremendous influence who would become the next rodeo queen. And he had made it clear that friendships, history, and hurt feelings were not going to affect his decision. Worse, Bo had begun asking questions about Mar's past victories. Rumors were already circulating that some of those wins might not have come quite as natural as Mar wanted everyone to believe. Bo was getting close to something Mar desperately wanted left out. And Mar knew that if Bo spoke up before judging, she could lose much more than one crown. So, sometime during the early morning hours, Mar confronted Bo outside the TKO saloon. The argument became heated. And then Mar lost control. In her adorable purse, along with her sunscreen and lipstick, was a large, very heavy microphone. Just like this one. Yeah. No wonder it smells like blood. I'm not sure why. Mar grabbed it and swung. She struck Bo hard. But here's a detail that fooled almost everybody. The microphone did not kill Bozo. After Mar struck him, Bo turned around towards her. The blow hurt him, but it was not the fatal injury. Bo staggered forward, and then the back of his head slammed into the hard window ledge of the TKO saloon. That was the impact that killed Bozo. But Bo did not die immediately. No, a dazed and badly injured Bo remained on his feet for a short time. Blood began pouring from the wound on his head. Instinctively, he reached up and touched the top of his head. That is how Bo got his own bloody handprints on the window and wall. Disoriented, he stumbled along the wall, trying to keep himself upright. He reached out with those bloody hands for support, leaving the handprints and some of the smears investigators found on the stone. And all the while, blood was dripping down his head. Then, Bo finally collapsed. But what about that big puddle of blood? More importantly, why was the largest puddle of blood around Bo's waist instead of underneath his head? That was one of the strangest details of the case, or at the scene. The puddle did not mark where Bo's head had been lying. It marked the area where Bo had been standing and stumbling before he finally fell. While Bo was still upright, blood from the wound was falling to the ground beneath him. By the time he collapsed, a substantial amount had already collected there. His body then came down partly across that blood, leaving the largest puddle around his waist rather than directly beneath his head. And then Officer Drew One Gun managed to make an already confusing crime scene even more confusing.
Barney 5.
Following day, while helping remove Bo's body, Drew slipped in the bloody area. In an attempt to catch himself and recover, he smeared some of the existing blood further across the wall. So, investigators were looking at two different sets of blood evidence. Bo's original handprints and blood trail from those final moments on his feet, and Officer Drew One Gun's accidental smears from the removal of the body. What looked like one chaotic bloody struggle was actually the record of several separate moments. Mars strung the microphone, Bo turned towards her, he staggered backward and struck the window ledge. He touched his bleeding head, he stumbled, he reached for the wall, he bled onto the ground, and he fell. Coroner's findings told us the truth. The earlier bruises and aberrations were not fatal. Bo died from one devastating blunt force impact to the back of his head. Mars' microphone may not have delivered his fatal injury, but Marvelous set every one of those events in motion. And because Bo stood between her and a crown,
For a crown?
Mars spent the weekend wanting everyone to see her as rodeo queen. Unfortunately for Mar, the only title she earned Saturday morning was something very different. Murderer. Detectives, the evidence is in for the death of Bozo. Marvelous is guilty.
Get up now.
And Mar, you wanted something shiny on your head. Instead, Officer Drew has something shiny for your wrists. Case closed.
Get her